Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you to participate our first eHealth Consortium webinar in 2020 because of the COVID-19. I think everybody is now is not having a very go to the other place and everywhere as we wish now. So I also like to thank Rebecca for our speaker tonight. 咁咧，其實我講翻少少廣東話啦嚇。咁今次其實就eHealth Consortium 咧，我哋以往咧就每一年都搞差唔多2至3個月，我哋會搞一個 seminar 嘅。咁今年就因為係特別嘅情況啦，所以我哋係今次先第一次喺網上我哋做一個會嚇。咁啊，好多謝 Ingrid 啦，又好多謝 Rebecca 啦。咁同埋我哋好多謝 Mastercard 做我哋嘅合作伙伴嚇。咁就另外就多謝大家今日即係啱啱呢個晚飯嘅時間都上嚟啦。咁我唔想阻大家咁多時間啦。咁喺呢度我交翻俾阿 Ingrid 嚇。OK，thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I would like to do a very short introduction for Rebecca. Rebecca, our speaker, I would also like to thank you for time because it's very early in the morning. It's 7:40 right now. All right. So Rebecca is a very senior global business leader for security decisioning and products. And before she joined Mastercard, she was located in Singapore as an Interpol global complex for innovation. So maybe she's very good at the forensics, and she's also responsible for the international collaboration and coordination around all the cyber investigations. So she knows all the context. So maybe if you guys are really interested to get to know her more, maybe we'll share her contacts right after this webinar so that you can reach out to her and get to be friends of her. So without any ado, I think I will hand the time to Rebecca.
Thank you very much. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I'm having some technical issues this morning, and I'm hoping to just share a couple of slides. So I've been working in cybersecurity for more than 10 years now, and I would like to tell you there's been a lot of things that have changed in that time, but there hasn't really, to be perfectly honest. The methodologies that I was seeing 10 years ago when I was arresting cyber criminals are pretty much still alive today. There's the motto of if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. And that's very much been the case with cybersecurity. You know, there hasn't been a need really to evolve in methodologies to any great extent because we make it so easy for the cyber criminals. We have a very good mentality and visualization when it comes to our physical security, but when it comes to our cyber security, it's almost like we have a mental block and we can't seem to wrap around our heads around what good cyber should actually look like. And it's vitally important that you know what you look like to a cyber criminal from a digital ecosystem perspective. You know, we have fire insurance and we have building insurance and we have liability insurance when it comes to our physical domains and our physical premises. We might have cyber insurance when it comes to our digital ecosystem, but do we actually really know what it looks like and where the flaws and vulnerabilities are in that digital ecosystem that a bad guy can exploit? And cyber criminals can actually use free software that's freely available on the internet to break into your digital ecosystem. They don't need to spend any money. We see a lot of kids doing this, especially at the moment because of COVID. And I think it's important to mention that, you know, COVID has enabled new criminals to enter the market. We always used to say in law enforcement, there's no new crimes, just new criminals. And that's entirely true this year. We have seen a lot of 11 to 16-year-olds targeting businesses. It's very easy for them to deploy a phishing email against your company and actually break into your digital ecosystem when someone inadvertently clicks on that phishing email. And the problem is with cybersecurity is it's never the person who is at fault that actually suffers from a digital breach initially. It's everyone else, unfortunately, because what happens is when a data breach happens, just one second. When a data breach actually happens, the data is stolen, the PII, or the personally identifiable information, is stolen, or the card data is stolen and it's sold on the dark web. It's purchased by cyber criminals and it's used. And usually the first inclination that anyone has that a data breach has occurred to a business is either when their credit card has been hit with fraud, or they've seen a rise in credit applications, etc. And also, when these credit cards are used on the black market, then they're bought for goods and services. The customers suffer chargebacks, and these are not the merchants or the businesses that have actually been breached in the first place. So the actual impact of a cyber breach goes far down the chain until it eventually comes back to the responsible party who wasn't secure in the first place. And then we have to identify the fraud, we have to prop up the entity or the merchant, we have to get them back in business. And it's actually only in a quarter of the cases that we actually see what the true causation of a breach actually is. And if it's only in a quarter of the cases, that means there's 3/4 of the cases whereby you cannot tell how the bad guy got into your business in the first place. And often this is for a number of reasons, like somebody went and put their digital footprints all over the crime scene and destroyed the evidence of the information of the actual data breach itself, or the bad guy actually cleaned up the malware before they left the digital ecosystem. So the problem with that is if you can't tell how someone broke into your digital ecosystem, then how do you know that you're going to be secure against any further data breaches as well? So it's important that you know how they got in and how to stop them getting in again in the future. Now, I know that there's a lot of different figures that are bandied about in this environment about the cost of cybercrime and the cost of a data breach and things like that. And I think you can stick your finger in the wind on any day of the year and take a guess at how much cybercrime costs. But the problem that we have at the moment is that you can be secure, but anybody you allow into your digital ecosystem from a third-party perspective may not be secure. And one of the things that we've seen in the last 18 months is large brands like Cathay Pacific, British Airways, Macy's have all fallen foul of third-party providers that they allowed into their digital ecosystem. They may have been secure, but unfortunately the people that they gave access to were not secure. And if I've seen a movement in methodologies from cyber criminals, it's to move to the third-party space. We saw this many, many years ago in the USA with Target and Home Depot when they were breached, and there seemed to be a lull. But actually the bad guys have now realized that the third-party space is really where they need to focus their time and attention. And we are seeing organized crime enter this space. And they have business acumen, they have a structured system, and they are much, much more able to have a successful attack against a business. So you need to know what your cyber environment looks like, but you also need to know what your third-party service provider environment looks like. And it's important when you're negotiating service level agreements that you make sure that you set metrics around cybersecurity and that you instruct the third party that they must undergo some kind of scan so that you know what they look like at any given point as well. And the one thing about the RiskRecon product is that it's a proactive product. And you know, a lot of products in the cyberspace are reactive. You know, we wait for the bad guys to do their bad stuff, then we come in, we mop it up and sort things out. But if you know what you look like ahead of time to a cyber criminal and you can get those issues fixed or sorted, you're actually helping to reduce the available landscape of victims that a cyber criminal can actually target. So knowing what your digital ecosystem looks like is important from a number of perspectives as well. The other thing that we see quite frequently is the data sold on the dark web. And MasterCard actively looks to repatriate data from the dark web that the bad guys steal and then try to sell. Personally identifiable information is more sought after on the black market than credit card data. If we know there's been a data breach, then we can actually take those cards off the market by working with the issuer, and therefore that reduces the amount of fraud that can happen on credit cards. But unfortunately, you guys are all sitting on a huge amount of personally identifiable information that has a large black market value, and the most expensive record on the black market is obviously a medical record. And so the bad guys know that if they can exploit someone's date of birth, you can't change your date of birth, it's with you for life. So they know that they have a lifetime in which to exploit that data. And we know that children are more likely to be exploited from their personally identifiable information than adults are, primarily because when a child is given their identity number or they're registered with a medical association, they don't need to use that personally identifiable information to apply for credit until they're at least 18 years old or when they go off to college, etc. So the bad guys know that they have 18 years in which to exploit a child's identity. So keeping data secure is really, really important. So I'm just going to try, I'm having some technical problems this morning, but I'm going to try and share my screen.
Rebecca, do you need some time to see if you can pull up the screen? I can also steal some time from your presentation, helping the Hong Kong team to do some little advertisement on what's the offer for MasterCard in Hong Kong for the healthcare segment. It's not really for profit making, but because in responding to COVID-19, the local team is also doing some offers to the medical association and other healthcare organizations in Hong Kong. So we can take a little bit time from you.
Give me 2 minutes and I'll get the presentation sorted.
Okay, it's okay. Let me share my screen. It's okay. I will try to do the presentation in Cantonese, so bear with me because the local audience would like to hear from us in Cantonese. Yeah, so bear with us a little bit.
Sure.
Hello， 你哋好啊！各位兄弟姊妹，其實咁樣嘅，我諗我都係 take 少少時間咧去介紹翻咧，其實咧 MasterCard 咧之前咧，因為咧疫症嘅緣故咧，我哋究竟咧係做啲乜東東嘅？但係咧其實咧我咧就唔想咁 hard sell， 因為咧就唔應該咁 hard sell 嘅，所以咧我哋咧就係講少少有啲我哋同一間公司合作叫做 Jamtech 啊，咁佢咧其實咧就係咧 provide 一啲solution 咧就係啲 cleansing service 就俾一啲診所嘅 ，OK， 咁就希望咧可以咧令到咧啲診所咧就可以無菌狀態啦，同埋因為你都知道即係我哋做 payment industry 嘅時候，好多時我哋都希望啲朋友就多啲用一啲 digital channel， 咁其實而家大家咧都見到咧掂住啲銀紙咧都非常之污糟嘅，有機會會感染細菌嘅，咁所以我哋其實咧都同啲 partner 傾咗一啲promotion， 咁其實咧我之後呢一個 slide 咧就會 through 翻我哋個 secretariat 會 send 翻俾各位嘅，但係各位其實都係 optional 可以 join 或者唔 join 嘅，因為其實呢個 offer 其實就 extend 緊就俾啲healthcare 嘅practitioners， 其實如果咧你哋係一個 MasterCard 嘅 holder 咧，你哋咧就會咧可以 enjoy 到佢嗰個cleansing service 或者 coating service， 即係有一個折頭咁樣咯，咁所以呢一張 slide 咧我哋咧就會 之後咧再send 翻俾你哋去睇下，你哋會唔會有興趣去 join 嘅。咁基本上其實香港都好多學校啊，同埋有啲公立醫院都已經係 join 咗呢一個 service 嘅。咁呢啲 promotion 我哋就唔講咁多啦。咁其實咧後面咧我哋亦都有啲 contact details， 就係Gemtech 個 contact details 啦，同埋大新銀行嘅 contact details。點解我會提大新銀行咧？因為我哋其實咧就拍火咗大新銀行咧，就做咗一個咧 tap and go 嘅 solution 啦。咁 which is 可能你好似 Visa 有個 PayWave， 我哋嗰個咧就叫 PayPass 咁樣。你咧基本上咧拎住張卡，其實咧就唔使去碌嗰張卡嘅。咁而家全部所有嘅嘢咧都係一個 contact。可以搞掂，就令到你可以咧好安心咁樣咧去睇醫生，亦都同時咧唔使咧係去拎一張 physical card 出嚟咧，可以令到你哋就會比較健康一啲咯。咁我哋都會將 Mastercard 嘅 contact 都會擺翻喺度。咁如果大家有需要嘅，就可以隨時揾以上喺嗰個 list 嗰度嘅各位咁樣咯。嗰個 presentation 入邊咧，其實咧都會有少少關於 Gemtech 佢哋嗰啲R&D team。究竟點樣認證到佢哋非常之安全啊？同埋我哋嗰啲 reference case 其實都會擺到。咁我就唔應該講太多呢啲嘢嘅。咁所以就變咗我就會可以將個時間咧就交翻俾阿 Rebecca， 睇下 Rebecca 得未？Rebecca, are you feeling more comfortable to share your screen?
It's still opening. So I'm going to use a slightly different deck this morning. So just bear with me. I'm just going to open this. I'll share my screen. Zoom is not doing what it's supposed to do for me this morning.
No worries.
Here we go. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen and then we can get sorted.
Let me.
Okay.
Oh, Jerry.
Let's go for this one.
Cool.
Okay. Oh, goodness me, it's gone in the wrong direction. Let's see if we can get this open.
Wow, I love this comment.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So, how does this all work? How do you know what your digital ecosystem looks like to a cyber criminal? So think of it this way. Think of, I have a big retail merchant here, but think of it in terms of a health center or a hospital. So I know that you have lots of drugs and things like that in your hospital, your healthcare center, and I'm a bad guy. And I want to break into the physical premises. But I'm good at what I do, so I'm going to do some reconnaissance on your health center or your hospital. And I'm going to stand outside your building. I'm not going to touch your building. I'm not going to go into your building. I'm not going to interfere with your business, but I'm going to stand and I'm going to walk around the outside of your building and I'm going to passively observe the good and bad security elements that you have on your physical building and the comings and goings from the front door of the building. And as I'm standing watching, I see you have a CCTV camera. So that obviously does not work in my favor. So I'm going to give you plus 10 points for that. But as I walk around the back of the building, I see that you have a broken window. And that tells me, it looks to me like it's been broken for some time. So it tells me that you might be aware of breaches in your security, but you're not doing anything about them. So I'm going to give you minus 5 points for that. Then I see you have a burglar alarm. Well, that obviously doesn't work in my favor as someone who's going to break into your property. So I'm going to give you plus 10 points for that. But as I'm standing there watching, I see this woman walk out the front of the building and she's obviously got an armful of stolen property, etc. And she's walked straight past the security guard. And he appears to have noticed her, but not done anything about it. So it tells me that you might have the right security elements, but they're not doing the right job. And then as I'm standing there watching, I see you put your rubbish or your garbage out on the pavement. And anything you put out onto the public space, you relinquish ownership to. So I'm going to go through that garbage to see if I can find out what's going on inside your building based on what you're throwing out. But then I think to myself, you know, I have to be local to break into your physical premises. I'm probably going to get caught. It's very high risk. So what about if I looked at your digital ecosystem instead? And this is what RiskRecon does. We walk around the outside of your digital ecosystem, so healthcenter.com, and we look for flaws and vulnerabilities in your digital security. And I go through your digital garbage to find out what's actually going on inside your digital perimeter as well. And what I can tell from what we do is that I can tell whether or not your systems are patched and up to date. We all know that many years ago that WannaCry and NotPetya were able to determine the companies that were using Windows 7, and that was how they were able to target those and break in. We can do the same thing from a digital perspective. So I can tell if you're using Magento, which is out of date, PHP scripts that are out of date, etc. I can also tell if you are PCI compliant in the sense that you are using TLS encryption and not SSL encryption. I can also see if there's any malware infections inside your digital ecosystem that are calling out to a bad guy's infrastructure on the outside. And I can also tell equally if a bad guy is deploying a botnet against your premises, your digital ecosystem, and where that's coming from as well and where it's targeted to. So there are 43 criteria built under 11 domains, and I'm going to show you what those look like in just a second. And then we give a score from 1 to 10 based on your cybersecurity. So if I can just come out of this just a second, I'm going to show you the actual RiskRecon product and portal. Can you still see my screen? Okay, perfect, thank you. So we need just 2 pieces of information from you, which is your legal entity trading name and your one main URL. So for example, MasterCard, mastercard.com, HealthCenter, healthcenter.com, etc. And we map your entire digital ecosystem off that one domain. And we can tell how many hosts you have, where your infrastructure is hosted, what the size of the landscape is, and we can tell all sorts of different things here. So let me just go into one of these here. I'm just going to use this as an example. I don't want to show you a health center. So this is what you would see. You would see your risk rating. You would see if you've had any issues in the past with any data breaches, because we record data breaches over time as well. And this goes for your third-party service providers. If you load them into this portal, you will see their risk rating and you will see if they've had any data breaches in the past as well. And these are the 11 domains that we look for: software patching, web encryption, DNS security. We also look at IoT devices that are connected to the internet that should not be connected to the internet. The amount of times I see CCTV cameras or printers or things like that that are out on the internet, I could be living in the Bahamas by now, but these are things that you do not want connected to the internet. We also look at your authentication methods. Have you got any payment endpoints that are insecure? And I should say, because although we're MasterCard, we're not just looking at the card data environment. We are looking at all digital assets that are connected to the internet beyond the card data environment. This is a holistic approach to your digital ecosystem. And what we do is we look at a risk priority matrix. And if I scan you, I'm going to come back with a whole load of issues, and some might be as trivial as a missing screw in your door. But if the door is still closing and locking, it's not something that you need to give your full attention to right now. What you need to give your full attention to is to these red critical issues here. And for some reason, it's not loading, unfortunately, but I'll see if I can get this back here. I think the internet's failing me this morning. And so what we actually do, here we go. So we can list all the devices that are connected to the internet that have critical problems that are likely to get you breached. So these are IoT.
Are you showing
yes.
slides or the browser right now?
Yes, is it not visible?
Oh, yes. Maybe you can unshare your slide first and then reshare your browser. maybe because you are just showing your slide screen.
Oh, really? Okay, just bear with me. Let me stop sharing and start again. Hang on.
Yes.
Oh boy, don't you love technology? Where are we? Here we go. Okay, is this working now? Okay, hooray.
Hooray.
Okay, so let me just take this back a second. So what I was trying to say to you was, if you have third-party service providers, they can come into a portfolio in your online system here. So we would give your portfolio an overall score. So if you had, let's say, 100 or 20, whatever it is, third-party service providers, we would give that portfolio a score. We would tell you who in your portfolio of third parties you need to be really worried about because they are critical or we believe they've been breached, who you need to fix in your portfolio, who needs some time and attention because they've got some issues, and who is good to proceed. And you can actually risk stack your portfolio of third-party service providers according to their score, good to bad, etc. as well. So let me just go into this one here. So if this was a health center, you would get an overall score, and this is the timeline that I was talking about earlier. And these are the 11 domains that I was talking about as well. And this is the risk priority matrix that I was talking about, where we look at the right-hand corner where the critical issues are, because these are the issues that are going to get you breached. These are the issues that the bad guys can see, and these are the issues that they're going to exploit. So for example, if you have outdated PHP script or you have an IoT device connected to the internet as well, the bad guys can see it and they can actually attack that device. The chances are, if you've got out-of-date server patching, they're probably going to serve a phishing email on you so that they can get into your system as well, and actually download some malware to exploit your system. So if I go into any one of these domains here, it actually breaks down into further criteria. So we look at things like application server patching, web server patching, content management systems, and all sorts of things. And if I go into application server here, it tells you how many systems we've discovered that are running end-of-life software. And also what it does is it tells you how many days we've been noticing these issues or these problems. Wow, and it also tells you, yeah, I know, also tells you the type of asset as well that you have connected to the internet. So one of the things that we do is that we look at what it is actually connected to the internet. And if it's not a payment system or a payment website, then we would put that as low asset value, low criticality. But if it's anything that's asking for personally identifiable information or is related to payments, then we would class that asset as high value and severe criticality. And which means that you need to address it now, because if you get that breached, you're probably going to lose data. So we list all these different things. We actually tell you which IP address the problem is on as well, so you know where to go. And if I can click on one of these, it'll tell you, let me see, issue management here. So it tells you whether or not you can share this with your vendor. So for example, if it's a third-party service provider and you notice that they're running an out-of-date script, you can actually send them an action plan telling them that this is the problem and this is what they need to get secure. And there's an audit trail of that as well. And then they can be rescanned and you can check whether or not they've actually complied with your request to fix it as well. And it might be that it's a false positive, so you can report it as a false positive. It might be that there's a compensating control, so it's not an issue. We can only see what we can see from the outside, but if you've got great tech on the inside that's protecting your systems, we can't see that, but you can report that to us so we don't keep scanning it. I just go back here a second as well. So we can go through all these different domains here, but one of the key things that I like about this system is that we also map it to international standards. So things like PCI compliance, NIST, ISO, these kinds of things as well. And this is really important because dependent on the size of your organization, you either self-attest to being PCI compliant annually, or you have a quality assurance QA internally, or you put it out to a PCI company on an annual basis to get yourself PCI compliant. Now, we will never say that an organization is or is not PCI compliant, but what we will say is based on what we are seeing on the external scan, there may be deficiencies in certain standards of the PCI model. So particularly when you have a third-party service provider, it will help you to understand whether or not they are actually PCI compliant. And if you're doing business with them, you obviously want them to be PCI compliant. You can also download PDF reports. We do an executive summary for your board, and we do a technical report for your tech teams as well. You can also benchmark yourself against other peers in your industry. So it might be that you have a local competitor and you want to see how you look against them, then you can add them to this system as well. We show you your company profile, etc. Now, what I'm showing you here is the full RiskRecon system. We're actually offering a free deal on what we're calling My Cyber Risk at the moment, which is Overview tab, Security Profile tab, IT Profile tab, and PDF downloads. So it's a half version of RiskRecon. It's free until the end of the year. Any healthcare organization is eligible to sign up for it. And it gives you a taste of what you look like now to a cyber criminal. You might look good today, but as we know, there are flaws and vulnerabilities being found all the time in the cyberspace. And actually, for every piece of software you have on your digital systems, the code, for every 10,000 lines of code, you're going to have a couple of hundred errors in that code that get identified once a month by either Microsoft or Apple or whomever and get patched. And if you're not keeping up with your patching schedule, then obviously that puts you in a very precarious position as well. So I'm conscious of the fact I've given you a lot of information, and I want to open it up for questions to see if there's anything else that I can go into in more detail for you or answer your questions about cybersecurity in general.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is the floor now open for questions?
Was it that clear cut? That nobody has any questions?
I think they're still digesting what you were saying, but let me kickstart the Q&A section. I have a really short question for you. Based on your experience being an Interpol specialist, specializing the forensics and such, can you highlight the importance of why doing a cybersecurity assessment in, I think, timely manner is really important to every organization, and why it is of utmost importance to the healthcare organization? Yeah.
So I've been involved in law enforcement for a long time, some 19 years. And one thing I can categorically tell you is that it's absolutely futile to try and bring down a lot of these cyber criminals. Not so much the organized crime groups, but all the sort of children and things like that are involved in cybercrime, because it's so easy for kids to become involved in cybercrime. There's such a high volume of them globally because the risks are deemed to be very, very low. But the chances are, if you are hit with a cyber attack, it could well be a kid that has hit your organization. And we had a telco in the UK that was actually hit with a major data breach, and everyone wanted to believe it was a certain nation state that was targeting this telco. And it actually turned out to be a 15-year-old in his bedroom in Ireland that had brought down this massive telecommunication company. So, if you get hit with a data breach, often people want to be hit by the best because then they can say, well, it was a nation state. But the chances are you're going to be hit by a kid. So it's really important that you know where your flaws and vulnerabilities are. And as I say, being in the healthcare sector, you have a greater responsibility because you hold more personally identifiable information. And the one problem we have at the moment, and whether it will be solved in the future, is that at the moment, if your PII is exposed, it's exposed for your lifetime. Now, whether we can do something about digital encryption of data and things like that MasterCard is working on, that's something that we're trying to fix. I think we've got to the point where we realize that personal data needs to be digitized and needs to be tokenized to protect it. So, knowing your ecosystem, knowing who is targeting you as well is really important. This program, we collect a lot of intelligence around who is targeting what businesses. One thing we've seen with COVID as well is an exponential rise in the number of websites that have been registered with COVID or coronavirus in their title. And the biggest problem that we have at the moment is it takes on average 279 days for most companies globally to identify that they've actually been breached and to remediate. And so when this all started back in February, we still haven't hit that 279-day mark. So we're still waiting to see what businesses globally have actually been targeted by successful coronavirus phishing campaigns. And we probably won't know that for another month or so yet. It'll be closer to the end of the year. So we are expecting a plethora or an increase in spike in the number of businesses that have been breached via successful coronavirus campaigns.
Okay, Rebecca, I have another tough question for you.
Sure.
There are some questions coming in. What is the price for the standard subscription of RiskRecon, and what's the model that we are running, and why we are targeting healthcare segment?
Okay, perfect. So it starts at $25,000 US. It goes all the way up. I mean, some customers globally, massive customers, are paying about $1 million. On average, it's around $150,000. The reason why we're targeting the healthcare sector is because in the USA, we had an approach from the White House asking us what we were doing about small businesses and healthcare during the coronavirus campaign. MasterCard has a motto of doing good by doing well. And for this entire year almost, we have been offering this product to the healthcare sector. We work with the Health ISAC in the USA, who I know is looking to penetrate Hong Kong and Asia Pac. They are an organization a bit like the Financial Information Sharing Cyber Center. What they do is they support the healthcare sector around cybersecurity. We know that at the moment, the healthcare sector is front and prominent because of what is happening with COVID. And so therefore, brand names that would never be exposed globally in ordinary circumstances from a regional perspective are being identified in the media, which actually puts you front and center where the cyber criminals are concerned. And so that they know that you are also taking an increase in patients at the moment because of coronavirus testing. So therefore, you've got more data in your systems that they can actually exploit as well.
That would be cool. There is another one for you as well, because you are the only speaker for here. Okay. What is the critical difference on cybersecurity under decentralization system, like in blockchain, as compared with the traditional centralization system on cloud-based, and facing the trend of more blockchain-related systems may be used in healthcare segments in the future? Yeah, because for Hong Kong, the healthcare organizations are researching recently about the application of blockchain for the eHealth records right now. Yeah, because we have a territory-wide eHealthcare record system being in town, right in place since 2015. And then they are really keen on putting it into a second generation and third generation. So they have been researching on recent new technologies like blockchain. So maybe you can tell us the difference, yeah, between the cybersecurity thing, because it's decentralized, and with the blockchain, what's the difference? Yeah.
So I hear blockchain a lot, and I have done over the last 10 years. I mean, blockchain is good, but there is an expense to it. And to my mind, you know, it's good from a transactional perspective, and it's good to know where data sits and how data is secure. I am a much bigger or stronger proponent of tokenization, to be perfectly honest, of data. I think if the data is broken apart by the token and it's put back together in a secure location, I think that's a good way of protecting data. There are lots of different innovations coming in around cybersecurity, and we also use some blockchain in our AI products as well. I think first and foremost, I think this is about getting back to basics. It's about knowing where the data is stored, what the data is used for, and what would happen to the data if it was exploited. And one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is are people taking out court cases and suing companies for the loss of their data. And obviously with things like GDPR in Europe, which I do think will expand globally in the future as well, it's much more incumbent on businesses to protect that data. I'm not going to profess to be a huge technical expert on blockchain. I know a lot about Bitcoin and things like that. So it's not something that I would be able to advise on the actual technical application.
Thanks. Thanks for your attempt. I think we need to tell the audience that MasterCard is quite focused on doing tokenization of transactions, including data transactions. Yeah, if I'm wrong, do correct me. All right. Yeah.
No, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, but thank you, Ping, for raising this question on the difference. Yeah, because I think many people would like to know the difference, as a lot of new technologies are coming out. Yeah, thank you. So is there any questions? Okay, that's a previous question from a friend from Hospital Authority. He sees a black screen.
Oh no, sorry. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think the questions are yeah, for right now is there. Yeah. So I think we have to thank you the participants of this webinar, and then we have already record some of the essence of this webinar, and it will be put the link for the audience to review afterwards. Yeah.
What I would say is there is a sign up which Thomas and team can help with for the healthcare sector. As I say, it's free. There's no obligation whatsoever. I would advise that you take the use of this free product to have a look at it and see what your digital ecosystem looks like. It will give you a huge amount of information that will help you in your in optimizing your resources. We all know at the moment that technical resources are finite. We've got budget cuts and everything because of COVID. So please take the opportunity to utilize this free Healthcare Heroes program that we're operating with.
Sure, I will be sending the link to the participants and some of the target audience. Yeah, to see if they found it useful. Thank you, Rebecca, for the offer.
No worries.
And thank you for your time. Ken, we are, you can have some closing remarks if you like. In Cantonese is for sure okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Thanks so much for your favorite marvelous speech. And I also, Candice can also, after Ingrid, give us the free whatever, and we can send to our members. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you everyone for attending the tonight's webinar, and we look forward to another one in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Hey, thank you so much, for, Ingrid, for organizing, and thanks, Ken, and all participants. Just let us know how we can support you, and we'll be here to help you out. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you,
I'll
Thomas.
follow up with the guys and girls here. Thanks.
Yeah, great.
Bye bye for now. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.